Welcome to the Checker Chat. I'm Blake,
And I'm Justin.
and this week we're going to be bringing you a recap of the last weekend at Phoenix, and we're going to look forward to this next weekend at Las Vegas.
Woo, Vegas, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully this weekend will kind of follow suit and be a good race, which it should be because these cars do really good at mile-and-a-half tracks.
yeah, I agree. I think this week will be interesting without there being option tires.
Yeah.
Although the option tires did bring a lot into this race.
Yeah.
Which we'll get more into that as we get into the actual week.
I think it'll kind of be the first true non-wild card race, I guess
Yeah.
you could say,
I agree.
because Daytona 500 is a wild card, anything could happen. Atlanta's a drafting track. A lot of things happened. A lot of things can happen. A road course, you kind of never know what to expect with. And then you had option tires at Phoenix. So this is almost kind of just the first straight up race in a sense.
I agree. It's going to definitely be a fun one for sure. Blake, what we got from this week outside of this?
So for news this week, a lot of it has to do with Prime and their involvement in NASCAR. They added Carl Edwards to the booth, which I think is that's going to be the best booth of the year.
Yeah,
having Dale Jr. and Carl Edwards together. I'm actually really excited for Prime's portion of the season. I think I don't know. I'm also just tired of Fox, so that might add into that. But I think that it's going to be refreshing because it's going to be something new.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's not saying that the CW isn't good, which we'll get into that.
Yeah, yeah, we will
in a second. Their booth is really good, but I think part of why everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, it's so good," is because of it being something new and fresh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I felt when they brought Lee Diffie into the booth.
Yeah. No, I agree. And then to stay on Prime, they're gonna release a Dale Earnhardt documentary on Memorial Day weekend this year, Coke 600 weekend. I haven't seen the trailer for it yet.
I watched the trailer when I got home today, and it almost looks like it might not just be Dale Earnhardt. Like, I think it's going to be Junior also.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense then.
I know he had a large involvement with it because he was talking about it last year on Dale Jr. Download.
Okay.
He's working with Prime on something. And I thought at the time when he announced he was going to be announcing, I was like, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And then this documentary, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. That's probably what it is.
Yeah. And then wrap up the news for the week. Also, NASCAR has made changes to the open exemption provisional that Elio Castroneves got for the Daytona 500 this year, to where now the only time that provisional is going to be available for anyone is if more than 40 cars plan on qualifying, which before, if you didn't have a charter, you could technically apply for it any week, was my understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also are now going to allow them to earn points and prize money during the race, which beforehand you weren't eligible for points or prize money if you fell back on that provisional.
I think that's going to be interesting. I mean, with how much drama was around it for the 500 this year, I get why they're doing this. It makes sense. But that is all for outside of the race. I guess we will dive into the Xfinity race. It was eventful.
Yeah.
At the end,
right?
I think
there were a few things here and there early, but after stage one. Stage one was just straight up. Alex Bowman starts on the pole. Alex Bowman keeps the lead after the restart and just ran off with it for the most part.
And then our buddy Austin Hill made
Mr.
probably
Atlanta.
Mr. Atlanta the king of drafting tracks in
Yeah.
Xfinity. He done messed up, Ron.
He
Big time.
yeah. So in turns 3 and 4, like at Phoenix with the new way, like the new reconfiguration of the track, the wall kind of ends at a certain point, and they get really close to the end of the wall for the turn. Like that's just kind of the preferred line if you run low. And I mean, like even I think Parker said in the booth, like it's hard when you're right behind somebody like he was to see ahead. So you're almost following in the tire tracks of the person in front of you. And I believe it was Sammy Smith. He was in the tire tracks of kind of just following along. And he misjudged a little bit and hit the inside wall, which shot him straight up the track.
Yep.
Took out Sheldon Creed, and then Dean Thompson was also involved in it as well.
That was you could tell by his radio transmission afterwards how embarrassed he was.
Yeah, I mean it was just a weird deal. Like I don't really know what else to like try to classify it as other just like a weird deal because I mean he didn't get loose. He wasn't too tight. It wasn't a car setup issue. It wasn't.
It was just
mechanical.
Simple.
It was just
user
driver error.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's what happens when you take Austin Hill to a non-drafting track.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, that was watching that I was like, oh, this has got to be somebody not experienced. Probably one of the most experienced ones in the Xfinity field. So just shows that
mistakes happen.
Oopsies happen to everybody.
Yeah, oopsies.
Big oopsies.
I kind of thought too, like when it happened, I wanted to wait on the replay to really like form my own thoughts on it, because I was like, okay, well, surely somebody hit him.
Yeah.
Maybe he was carrying too much speed. Maybe he got a bump. Like, nope. It's just a weird incident.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Basically what it sounded like on the radio. But then at the end of stage 2, Justin Allgaier wins the stage. I really thought that he was. I mean, I picked him last week.
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna win.
Yeah. Well, I'll save what I was about to say for when we get to it. But so that was his 70th stage win of his Xfinity career, which it's a huge milestone. And he's just leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else in that category, because the next closest for all-time stage wins is Christopher Bell with 33.
Yeah.
So I mean over double.
Granted, you could say, oh, he's had a longer Xfinity career, and it's like, yeah, that's true, but also like,
yeah,
that just shows consistency over time, you know.
I mean, the other thing too is like you could probably look back and say, oh, well, what if they put stage racing in 10 years before, 15 years before?
Yeah,
what about, would Kyle Busch have it? Would Kevin Harvick have it? Like, you know, people like that. But it's a combination of like his skill and his experience, but then also that his career, like since they introduced stage racing in the Xfinity Series, he's been in the Xfinity Series pretty much.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny that the only other person that's close is Chris Bell.
Yeah.
We'll get to him in a bit. Don't worry. So lap 147, Dawson Cram makes contact with Sammy Smith in turn 1, which ends up flattening Cram's right rear tire and sends his car into the wall.
Which I believe he was a lap down at the time, and he was like trying to get out of everybody's way and ended up in the way.
Yeah.
kind of a racing deal. Sucks for Sammy Smith.
For sure.
He definitely wasn't happy with it.
Yeah. I mean, lap cars are something you definitely have to deal with in, um, the shorter track
Yeah.
and stuff. I mean, really any track at this point.
Yeah.
For the most part. But moving on with Xfinity.
On lap 197, Nick Lights, I believe is how you pronounce the last name.
Leitz?
Could be wrong. Leitz,
something.
Lights, something like that. He kind of just spun out on his own in 3 and 4, backed the car up into the wall, and brought out the caution that ended up causing an overtime restart, which is kind of where it all went down.
Yeah, this is like where things got interesting.
Because I mean, all day you knew the 3 best cars were Bowman, Allgaier, and Almirola.
Yeah,
They kind of, in a way, took turns of leading.
mm-hmm.
Like Bowman, just I guess like from the get go, just had the best speed. Like he unloaded better than them.
Yeah,
I think he kind of got behind on adjustments. He was still one of the best 3 cars, but then you saw stage 2, Allgaier really came into his own, and they made the right adjustments to the car. And Almirola was always kind of just second, I feel like, speed wise.
yeah, definitely. So this brings out the overtime finish.
The patented Xfinity overtime finish.
Yeah. Literally, it feels like every week Xfinity. It's always in an overtime finish. Always, never fails.
Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not,
Yeah. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into that part now, or?
Yeah, so on the initial restart, Allgaier had the lead, but he ended up kind of slipped up. Bowman and Almirola went around, and then at that point, you kind of knew the battle for the win was between Bowman and Almirola. Well, for me and anyone else who was watching the CW in Atlanta, you see the white flag, you see Bowman ahead, and you're like, okay, cool. Like, I'm sure something's going to happen, but Bowman has a lead. Like, I think Bowman's going to win. And then they cut to a commercial.
A Braves commercial.
Yeah, a Braves commercial. And it just, you were like, okay, like, are you kidding? Like, somebody accidentally put a commercial on. They're going to cut back. Don't worry, they're going to cut back. We'll at least get finished. No, it was a full-blown commercial break. And then they took it to the Hawks pregame show. The pregame show. I don't. And also, my dad pointed out the Hawks were on 3 different channels that day. 3.
That's insane.
Like they were on the CW and 2 others, and that included their pregame show. Usually, while watching sports, you might miss the beginning of a game because whatever sporting event was held before it runs over into their time window. They'll run a little thing at the bottom that whatever you're trying to watch is now airing on, whatever other channel. Go there, but whenever it ends, we'll get right back to it. Yeah, you would think if the game was happening, that would, but the fact that they just straight cut it for a pregame.
See, at this point,
and it's nothing against like NASCAR. It's just
no,
straight whoever
the
runs
local,
the CW
the
local
CW channel. That's what it is.
I mean, that was just awful.
No. I mean, like this kind of stuff, it can't happen. Like I get Xfinity, it's the lower series. People are like, oh, does anybody really watch this? Yes, people do. Yes, people watch it. Some people stream it from a website in the parking lot while they're waiting to go get ice cream. That was me.
Yeah, and which you got lucky.
I got the whole thing.
Yeah, because yours, I think it streams New York.
Yeah.
Which, shout out to my girlfriend Lily. She found that there is a questionable website that you can stream the CW off of because
Because there's not even an option to stream it in the app, as
Right.
far as I'm aware.
No, there's
Because I
not.
pulled it up and you could see driver cams, but
Yeah.
it's like 2 of them. It's
Right.
not even like it was like just back marker team driver cams. I'd be watching the race from the bumper of a lap down car.
Yeah.
But like there's not even an option to stream it in the CW app.
Yeah, which I think, because ultimately I do think that CW's doing good with the Xfinity series.
Their broadcast is phenomenal.
Yeah, their broadcast is great. Graphic teams knocks it out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we've seen an uptick pretty much every week this year in viewership.
Yeah.
From this time last year.
Like I love how whenever they do like the choose on a restart, they show it's like a little graphic of the car itself. It looks super dope. Like I love it. It's just the actual network that needs
They
some
need
work.
the option in the app to stream it.
Yes.
Because the other thing too is like my girlfriend Lily streams everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you stream everything and you don't have cable, you're not going to get it because they don't have it on the CW streaming app. So, like, if I'm watching it at my house, I have Charter. It's a channel.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's a free channel. Like, you could go get an antenna.
That's the thing. You can go buy an antenna, but does everybody want to do that and have some ugly ass cable hanging from the back of their TV going to their window, and you hope that it's positioned right and you don't live in the middle of nowhere and you can't get it, you know?
I just think in the day and age where, like we talked about Prime already, like this is going to be the first year that there's streaming and even already now, if you want to watch practice and qualifying, it's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So we're already to the point of streaming things. The CW has the ability to stream things. I think that they need to sooner rather than later add the option in the app to live stream the race.
Because I mean, streaming is miles ahead of what it was just like
a couple of years ago
before COVID. You know, like 2019. If you heard, oh yeah, the I can't remember what NFL game it was. But
it was Christmas.
Christmas.
It was on
Christmas.
Netflix.
Yeah, it was on Netflix. Like you'd be like, that's crazy. There's no way.
I'm not gonna pay for Netflix
I can
to
barely
watch the
get
game.
Iron Man to stream to play all the way through without it buffering 20 times.
Yeah.
I mean, we have streaming. I mean, Netflix has streamed that game, the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, whatever Paul brother it was that decided to fight an old man. They've streamed those. They've streamed a lot of, I mean, it's not sporting events, but like comedy things.
Yeah.
They've done, like the Tom Brady roast was streamed live.
Like we've gotten to the point where we can stream a live event.
Yeah. Like it's not that crazy.
Well, and the other thing I feel like too is it's a free channel. Like we said, you can get
just stream it on the app.
Yeah, you're not losing money by doing it. I think it's something that will get added, but
yeah, it's just especially with streaming like the CW. It's like you said, it's a free channel. Just put it on the freaking app, please. Please, 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 please.
All right, Sabrina Carpenter.
Please, please. Yeah. Anyways.
But
anyways, back to the race.
Yeah. So, I didn't get to see it in real time. I had to wait probably 10, 15 minutes to find a replay on social media somewhere.
I filled you in.
Yeah, but like Lily through Twitter was like, well, Bowman didn't win. And I was like, there's no way. Like, Almirola had to have done something.
Oh, he did something.
Oh, yeah, he did.
He did something all right.
Yeah, he drove into the final turn with no intent on making the turn whatsoever. And he pretty much admitted that in his post-race interview, which we'll get into in a second. But he drove in way too hot into 3 and 4 and drove straight up into Bowman and put Bowman in the wall.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of people on Twitter and different social medias that were like, well, everybody's overreacting because it's Bowman and Bowman's a Hendrick driver and Hendrick fans this and whatever. And to an
It doesn't
extent,
matter.
I see that argument sometimes because sometimes Hendrick fans are a little crazy about stuff. But when you're Eric Almirola and your goal and what your plan was when you go down to the Xfinity series was, hey, I've retired from full-time racing. I want to go down to the Xfinity series and mentor the young guys. I want to
Yeah,
show them how to race
that's not how
clean,
you
like
mentor.
this, that, and the other, like all this stuff. And then you do that, which, whatever. If you need the win that bad, you do you. It's dirty as hell, in my opinion. But if that's what you want to do, do. But then to get out of the car and then in your post-race interview be like, well, yeah, I knew I was going to use him up a little bit, but he finished second, didn't he? I didn't ruin his day. You did. He was going to win the race. I get that he finished, and it was a close finish and that. But you did ruin his day. He was going to win.
I mean, that's the thing, like, this is going to sound stupid and I sound like I'm uninformed, but Almirola's not running full time.
No.
So you've got a part-time driver fighting another part-time driver. Like, you're not battling it out for the points.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just to say you won and for the money ultimately, but I mean,
and like either of those teams need more money.
right.
Sorry, but you know.
And like the other thing too that I felt was so fitting, it was a Joe Gibbs car that absolutely used somebody up, just completely. And then they did the dirtiest thing you could do, almost. I mean, you could have just destroyed the car. I get that argument.
True.
But then you get out of the car and you're like, which I have no problem with religion in this, but then you get out and you're like, oh, well, thank you, Jesus, and thanks, God. And I'm like, you just drove into the turn and tried to kill him. And we're going to get out and be like, thank you, Jesus, for this win. And like, it's just, no. Like, Ty Gibbs used to do that. Ty Gibbs would wreck half the field, show up with a mangled up car. It'd probably say he gets us on the side of it. And then he
gets us into the wall.
All glory to God. I couldn't do this without him. And it's like, well, you couldn't have won the race without destroying someone else.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah. No, totally. So if you guys aren't aware, we don't record in the studio. And if you just heard that bark, that was my dog, Rosie. Realize she's shown up on camera like quite a few weeks and hasn't, I've just said her name. Haven't ever like been like, yeah, that's my dog. You know, that's my dog. But yeah, I think that's a perfect
Ending point for Xfinity.
Xfinity. I won't say what I actually wrote in the notes about Almirola and his win.
We don't like Almirola.
Yeah. So, we completely forgot about the whole option tire thing when we filmed last week's episode.
Yeah.
Literally, we wrapped up and Blake was like, we completely forgot to mention it. I don't know how that completely slipped us, but it did.
Oops.
But the option tire this week, I mean, it allowed for Phoenix to actually be interesting.
Yeah. That was the best next gen race.
Oh, 100%.
By a mile. I like the option tire. Please do not do this at the championship race. But
if you extend the championship round to 3 races, I can understand bringing in the option tire.
Or the other thing where I think ultimately the option tire like test that this basically is going is they want to see how soft of a compound that they can get for everybody to run, because like getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but there were people who tried to stretch the life of the option tire this weekend a lot longer than you probably should have, which brought tire wear into the equation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get a softer tire to the track and people can't run basically a qualifying lap every lap and just push it as hard as possible because the tires aren't going to wear, and you actually have to have tire management, and you have to. It adds another layer of skill. It's going to make racing better.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, I don't I don't think anybody is going to be surprised by the first caution. Um, Catherine Legg, uh, she comes over the radio and is like, "Hey, I'm extremely tight," and spins off of turn 3. Um, I mean, she was not set up for a win.
She wasn't set up for success at all.
No.
And I mean, it's not like some people have just tried to be like, oh, well, you put another woman in NASCAR. What do you expect? It's not really that at all. It's more or less you can't expect somebody who's never ran a cup car to go get in BJ McLeod's live fast car that is very
Back
under
marker.
like back marker, under budget to everybody else. Not even a full-time car. Like I think it just opens up the conversation to maybe not as extreme as like F1 super license stuff, but
Yeah.
there needs to be a little more that to be done before you make a cup debut.
Yeah.
Because
I
like
agree.
even Elio at Daytona got in a wreck and then wrecked 2 or 3 more times, but not because he's a bad driver, but he's never
Cup
driven
cars
that
are
car.
yeah, cup cars are just different.
They're not easy to drive.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Also, if you look back at her history of actually driving in stock car, she's never finished a full race.
Yeah. Because
So
she's ran a few Xfinity races. She ran ARCA at Daytona this year.
and she crashed in lap, I think it was like
it was early,
3.
wasn't it? Yeah.
It was like super quick. But yeah, I think like you said, not as strict as like the super license, but
I mean, because we want other people to come give it a shot, and
yeah,
you want other fan bases to be introduced. Like you bring IndyCar drivers over, like Elio, you're gonna get a couple more IndyCar people to watch it. Maybe maybe be more interested in the sport, but like you also don't want them, in the case of like Catherine Legg, Phoenix, to kind of cause multiple unnecessary cautions in a way.
yeah, definitely. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I wish that there were more women in NASCAR. Like, it it is about time for there to be a a full time woman in the Cup, and for her to be,
Yeah.
because it's not like it's impossible.
No.
But it's just I feel like a lot of times it's just kind of like they're just not quite set up for success.
Yeah.
I mean, the last full time female driver we had was Dan Patrick.
Yeah. What a time that was.
Yeah. So, on lap 10, Cole Custer gets loose coming off of turn 2, and in that incident collects Stenhouse and Zane Smith.
Which he was kind of running not the racetrack, basically. Like in turns 1 and 2, how they'll cut the dog leg on the front stretch, they'll also run down and run the apron.
Yeah.
And that probably just early in the race.
I think that transition is what got it.
Yeah.
For sure. The transition over.
Because there wasn't much rubber laid down.
Yeah.
It was early.
Yeah.
Car probably wasn't handling exactly how he wanted it to.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to see that Andy's custard car do a little bit better this week.
Yeah.
But it definitely was just one of those moves that I think just came way too early in the race.
Yeah.
So then on the restart from this on lap 18, Logano gets penalized for crossing the yellow line before the start-finish line. This is the thing with that. People are like, oh well, it wasn't that bad. He didn't advance any positions or anything. The rule is very black and white. If any part of your car crosses that yellow line before the start finish line,
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it's a foot or if it's a centimeter.
Well, they also made it sound like it wasn't like, okay, the nose of your car's over the start finish line, you can cut down. Like your whole car had to be over
Yeah.
the start finish line
And
beforehand.
the thing is, he did his little Logano thing.
He brake checked the field on the restart like he does every time.
Yep. And then he messed around and found out.
Yeah. And then I think the annoying part too, like booth wise, was Clint. I normally really like Clint, but he's like, that's nitpicky. Come on now. That's nitpicky.
No,
that's nitpicky.
That was not.
But then, okay, play devil's advocate on that. You let him slide on that, then you got to let everybody else do it. Like, it's just, the rule's there for a reason. Like, get over.
Yeah. And then him coming over the radio. No freaking way. No. Like, I'm like, man, just accept it.
Just get over. It also, like, it's lap 18. There's 312 total. You got time.
Yeah, you got time to back up. Which later on, this brings him what I think ended up losing him that race. Because he had
again the chance of
the chance.
Yeah.
Hold on, because later on he ends up putting on the reds.
Yeah.
After Priest puts the reds on, around lap 25.
Yeah.
And goes from, it was like 33rd to 3rd by the end of the stage.
In a roughly 35, 40 laps, for the end of that stage, like the run. He was the only one to put them on. They were the brave ones to do it first. And I mean, for somebody like him, like how last week at Coda, they stayed out to get stage points. That was a great call because that's extra points that you weren't going to get. You were in 33rd. You were in the back.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to win this race. Go ahead and burn one now because you get two sets of the option tire.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, burn one now early and get track position. And, I mean, you never know. He stayed up there the rest of the day.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember exactly where he finished, but it was at least top 15.
Yeah. I mean, it was way better than what the day would have been if he didn't have that option tire in that moment.
You want to take the next one?
Yeah, so Byron ends up winning stage 1. And then in stage 2, McDowell blew a right rear tire and got in the wall right around the start-finish line, which brought out the caution. And that kind of was just the start of a bad day for him.
Yeah. McDowell did not have a good day.
Spire didn't have a good day. It started out really, which leads us into the next thing. But, they started out all 3 cars in the top 10, which is great. It's really good. They found speed, and that was good. Then you get to lap 99, where that had to be the biggest wreck, like, in a while for Phoenix.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because
there's a lot of cars.
Yeah, freaking Ty Gibbs. We'll get into some of his stats a little bit later. But yeah, so Ty Gibbs brings out the big one at Phoenix, which is wild to say. And he's 4 wide on the bottom of Justin Haley, Chase Briscoe, and Kosovar. And he runs them all high, puts Kosovar in the wall, made Briscoe's car catch air, and collected Riley Herbst, Cole Custer, Noah Gregson, SVG, and Brad K.
Which, I mean, I get it's a restart, and if you watch a Phoenix restart, they get crazy. They're going to go 5, 6 wide.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to cut the dog legs. Some people are going to stay up top. It's going to fan out a lot. They have to funnel back down a little bit for turns 1 and 2, but the big funnel comes where the wreck happened off of 2 because you can't race down pit road. And if you're running the bottom, you have to find your way back up. but I don't know if that was a situation where Ty Gibbs didn't know he was 4 wide, which I doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, he just ran up the track like there wasn't 3 other cars on the outside of him, which Justin Haley then moved up a little bit to try not to get hit Briscoe, which pushed Briscoe up into Hocevar, which just sandwiched Hocevar into the wall.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was just the track was kind of blocked, and
people just got collected in that. So at the end of stage 2, we have Christopher Bell winning stage 2. And it was in between 2 and 3 when Logano put on. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I was talking about earlier, Logano puts on soft tires, and after being stuck in the back after his restart penalty that he fully
didn't deserve, quote
Yep.
unquote.
Well, I just said he fully deserved.
No, I'm
but
saying
I know you're
from
being
his,
sarcastic, but yeah.
He just never. He whines too much.
Oh, 100%. 100%. So that was the thing. These red tires, I feel like just this race almost came down to who's got the reds left.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I think by the time stage 3 started, you could tell the strategy if you felt like you had a top 10 car and you could compete for the win was you weren't going to use your reds until stage 3.
Yeah.
And you were going to stretch and just run both your sets of reds as the final stage.
Yeah.
Try to do about 60 laps, I think, a piece on it was. There were some untimely cautions that messed that strategy up.
Yeah.
But I think made it more interesting for the fans.
Yeah. So speaking of untimely cautions, lap 216, Catherine Legg spins out off of turn 2, and gets absolutely nailed by Suarez. I mean, it definitely. I don't know how he did not see her.
Well, so I saw something where it was like a video of him in the motorhome after he was done, and I get where he said basically if she was an experienced driver, you wreck and you come back down.
Yeah.
Normally everybody tries to shoot high because they know, okay, like driver went up, hit the wall, they're probably gonna come back down.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I get you had a bad day. You got essentially your day ruined because of lap down car wreck, but like you still also drove into the side of her. She didn't hit you.
I mean, because it looked like she just got a little close to, it was Josh Berry, and just got loose off.
Yeah, which I mean is another instance of if she was more like if she was given more of a chance, like experience wise, beforehand, like test the car maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean,
you probably wouldn't get that loose underneath somebody, but it probably was a situation of dirty air where she just wasn't used to.
Yeah, definitely. She just it was tough for sure. I mean, because how much testing she got? It was like the 15 minutes of practice.
Yeah, and I mean sim work too.
But the thing is, no matter how much sim you do, it's not the same.
Yeah, and I mean, it definitely helps. You learn the track, you learn
for sure
stuff. But like, I think the other thing too is like all these other drivers that drive the car every week can, to an extent, have the correlation between sim work and the car because they know how the car feels.
Yeah.
But like, it's all what I'm trying to say, like, because she's never driven the car, it kind of is like
have the correlation.
Yeah.
For it. That makes sense for sure. And at the time Suarez was running 6th. So
which I mean is not good for him because he's probably gonna lose his ride by the end. I don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if that gets announced.
I think I would, and it's
soon.
Nothing against him, but I think I would be more shocked if he was back next year.
Yeah.
With track.
Yeah, for sure. Who knows? I mean,
I just feel like they're probably gonna go Zilich.
Oh, 100% they will. Imagine the biggest plot twist. Papa Gibbs is he's sick of Ty.
Never. Not
He
happening.
he's sick of Ty. Just let me do
Go.
this for a second. He's sick of Ty and him sucking. He said, "You're losing me money, little boy." Gives him the boot. He pulls. I can't even finish the statement. It's not even realistic at all.
Well, because Suarez is already driven for Joe Gibbs, so I don't
Oh
see
my
that
God,
happening
that's true.
again.
I forgot about that.
He's driven for Gibbs, Haas, and Trackhouse.
That's crazy.
But no, I don't. Realistically, I don't think Ty Gibbs will ever get the boot out of that seat, and I don't
Yeah.
think Austin Dillon will ever get the boot out of his seat.
Unfortunately, don't think that will happen. Yeah, because
Family.
yeah, family. That's why nepotism. Literally. So lap 266, Bubba Wallace blows a tire in turn 1, and he hit the wall really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard for sure.
And that one was just very, very poorly timed. Hendrick fans.
Oh yeah.
Because Chase was like, well, I'm not running the best. Let me pit and get on a different strategy and see how that helps. And then William Byron decided he was going to pit earlier than the other leaders. And then he hit the wall, so they were trapped on pit road. Had to take the wave around and go to the back.
Yep.
Which I think probably robbed us of an even better finish, which is a spoiler.
No, I agree.
Because the two best cars of the day were Byron and Bell.
Yeah.
Really, the two best cars this whole year have been Byron and Bell.
Well, if you look at the win history, they're the only ones that have won races.
Yeah, but I mean, like speed wise.
Yeah,
like
no,
you look
no,
at
for
Coda,
sure.
you look at Atlanta. Like
all of them look pretty much best. This next one, I think what's really crazy about it is how early Blaney calls that he's blowing up.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like
Probably 40, 50 laps, I feel
yeah,
like.
I mean, something like that.
Which, I mean, we all know Blaney is a little extra on the radio and may or may not overreact sometimes to certain situations.
But we love him.
Yeah.
And that's why. He makes for good
sound bites.
Good sound bites, that's for sure. But he ends, I think he had some like crazy streak of like top 10s at Phoenix.
It was 7 straight top 10s or top 5s.
Something like
one
that,
of those
yeah.
Three, yeah.
But all of that kind of crashes and burns with, well, he literally crashes and burns. But he didn't crash. Engine just blew up. And he smoke screened Byron in the process.
I mean, you couldn't even see Byron's car there for a second.
Literally. So I feel like people were blowing tires left and right, and I think it's just because of them trying to stretch the option tires.
That, and I think also some of it with like the yellow, like the primary tires, they were playing a little more with air pressure to milk every last like 10th of a second per lap out of the tires to make it less dramatic between the option and the primary.
Yeah.
But I think some of it too is brake issue.
Yeah. So Ty Gibbs on lap 305 has brake issues and then hits the wall in turns 3 and 4 while running 13. Now, he was setting up, if this doesn't happen, to have the best finish he's had
since the Roval last year.
I guess
9 races in total.
Yeah. So the past 9 races, his best finish was 16th, and that was at this year's Daytona 500 wild card race.
Every other one, and this is in order from the Roval last year up until the last one being Phoenix this year. 35th, 30th, 36th, 32nd, 40th. Then you have your 16th at the Daytona 500, 32nd, 34th, and then this week, 20th.
Yeah.
If his last name wasn't Gibbs, he would be on the verge of getting fired.
Yeah. No, 100%. That
That's horrible.
the namesake is what is keeping him seat. That's for sure.
But I think this is an instance where he's messed around and found out that Granddaddy's wallets can't give him the best car in the field like he had in the Xfinity series.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody in this series is going to put up with him racing like a fool like he did for most of his Xfinity.
Yeah. He gets us into the wall. Um. Yeah. So on an overtime restart from Ty Gibbs bringing out a caution.
Yeah.
Bell wins the race. With Hamlin in second and then Larson in third.
Yeah.
Um.
I thought for a second on the white flag lap when Larson, so Bell and Hamlin were side by side, kind of drag racing down the backstreet. And I thought Larson was just going to dive bomb it in there, 3 wide bottom, and go for it. See if he could just slide job both of them. But I guess we're all racing respectful now, which is not a bad thing.
No,
but
not at all.
I think it's kind of like Coda last week.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an instance where he did, and he probably doesn't want to reignite the whole Denny and Larson rivalry again.
That's true. So Christopher Bell makes it 3 in a row. Last time that was done was Kevin Harvick.
Yeah.
Do you remember what year that was? Was it 2019? 2018?
I don't remember the year. It was, I feel like it was in the next gen car. Like early.
Maybe it was.
It was early 2020s. I'm pretty.
Okay. So yeah, he's now the most recent driver who made it